The Little Match Girl. Long time back, a little poor girl lived in a very small house in the poorest locality of a city. It was New Year Eve and a very cold night. The city was lashed with heavy snowfall. The roofs, streets, and trees were all covered with snow. She was known all around as the Little Match Girl because she went about selling matchboxes on the streets daily. But that night no one bought single matchbox from her. She got very tired. She had even lost her slippers and was wearing torn and shabby clothes. Little Match Girl had never been in this pitiful condition, as she was looked after by her grandmother before. Unfortunately, her grandmother died and left her alone with her hard hearted parents. As her parents had always been very harsh to her, they had never looked after her. That night, the poor little girl was roaming on the snowy streets. She stood near a rich man's coach and noticed with envy people carrying presents, big boxes of gifts. She thought, I am the unluckiest girl on this earth, and what am I living for? How lucky are those people who live their life with full of comforts. As the darkness grew further, the weather became more snowing and foggy. I can't stand here any more, braving the hostile winds, the poor girl said to herself, and went off to look for some shelter to protect herself from the fury of snow and storm. At last she came to a place where she curled up and tried to keep herself warm. She went and sat down on the steps. All the houses were illuminated as it was the New Year Eve, and people were celebrating the occasion by serving rich food and wine to each other. Lights were shining all around. The sound of their loud laughter and clinking of glasses diverted her attention. She could smell delicious food. The smell was so strong and stimulating that she almost forgot that she was hungry. She lit her matchstick and it began to emit a bright flame. As she watched the bright flame, her thoughts began to wander. She thought as if she was sitting before a warm stove and a hot blazing fire. As she moved farther to enjoy the comfort, alas, the bright flame went out. She had become so weak and feeble in the cold that she doubted whether she would be able to light a matchstick again. But at last she tried and lit the matchstick. Wow, how bright you are, she said to herself, while constantly staring at it. She imagined a house where a grand New Year party was going on. She saw a decorated cake, plump roasted turkey, and many other dainty things. But before she could reach to them, alas, the flame went out, and without taking a second thought, she lit another matchstick. She again went into a dreamland. She saw a big and beautiful Christmas tree. The tree was all over decorated with colored balls, golden beads, etc. There were also candles emitting bright lights. As she went near to the Christmas tree, alas, the flame went out again. Without waiting any further, she lit another matchstick and the flame grew brighter. She gasped in amazement as she beheld her own dear grandmother standing before her. She got happy and excited. She said, Grandma, would you remain with me forever, or you disappear like other things? She kept on lighting the matchsticks one after the other, as she was very afraid that if the flame went out, her grandmother would disappear and would stay no longer with her. Her grandma went closer to her and held her in her arms. The poor girl heaved a big sigh of relief as she felt the warmth of her grandma's arms and her affectionate love. The grandma then took the poor girl to the world of heavens. They passed through the world of twinkling stars. The poor girl did not feel hungry any longer, and there was no more pain and no more sadness. The next morning, city people passed through her. Poor child, how sad! She had frozen to death, they whispered. They saw burnt out matchsticks scattered around her and thought she must have tried to warm herself with these matchsticks. The poor girl looks so cheerful as if she is lying on her snowy bed. Everyone thought, but they did not know about the satisfaction the poor girl felt last night. What beautiful things she had imagined last night. Who would tell them the reason behind the smiling face of the girl? She had found peace with her beloved and dear grandmother.